Welcome back. We're talking about the use of the eye today, just a little bit of stuff. It may not be very long. You'll know. You already know how long it is. I forget those things. Before I start talking about it, I want to thank Sonia D, or I think you might be Jimmy C, for your recurring donation. Really thank you for this long-time support. And then Sergio E, thank you very much. That came in, yesterday, I think. So, all right. And I would just say that for all you guys who are liking and sharing and all that stuff, our numbers are still growing. It's very nice to see. Every once in a while, I do get some pretty snide comments on there, and I don't mind, but I do appreciate that the numbers are going up. In any case, all right. So this is about the use of one eye. Okay. There's two questions in here, and several things come out of it. And by the way, I'm going to tell on you. Evan's in the room today, and if he thinks of anything or throws a question at me, don't be surprised. I won't see you raise your hand, so Mr. Producer is going to have to tell me. It's all dark back there. Anyway, but this is coming from Giovanni. I close one eye when framing my still life with a viewfinder. I close one eye when aligning my cast with a spot in the background to maintain consistent viewing position. I hope you all understand what that is and how important that is to maintain consistent viewing position. Lately, while drawing, working to make angles and proportions more like, I find myself often looking through one eye and catch myself doing it even more so when I'm particularly struggling, say with an angle. Then I think, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. Excepting for clear special purposes, as above, why do I not always have both my eyes open when drawing? Would you please comment on this? What would be considered with regard to looking, what should be considered with regard to looking through one eye versus two? In the movies, the artist is always tilting his head and closing one eye, but I hate to trust Hollywood. Oh, there you go. Well, let's go back for a second and talk about the first part of this. I close one eye when framing my still life with a viewfinder. Of course, you look through a viewfinder, something this big, if you have both eyes open, it's going to be very confusing. You'll see double edges and everything. So clearly you will close one eye for that. You close one eye when lining your cast. Well, that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand how important it is to stay in one position all the time. So for a brief second, every time you go back to review, when you're drawing from life, you try to make a likeness of what's in front of you. You want to only make a likeness of one of the views in front of you. So I see students frequently standing an inch or two over to one side one day, and then another day they're standing an inch or two the other way. And before you know it, they're drawing like different numbers of shapes, all the shapes being different every time you move around a head. So if you're looking at my head, if you move over this way and look at me, you're going to get a whole different set of, the contour is going to be a different shape. So what I'm instructing people to do is, call this a cast here, is just to be looking down through the viewfinder. And you'll see that something behind you on the wall or something, maybe a letter on that book or something, will just align with it when you're in the right place on the floor, the place you intend to do all your drawing from. And you just make sure so if I move it one way or the other way, it won't be on that same mark. And so your job is to stand in that spot, make sure every time you go back that you're aligned with that, and then begin your looking. But then just go ahead and look with two eyes, with your eyes open, because you're a Cyclops anyway. When you use two eyes, you really are only using one eye. You have a dominant eye. But the funny thing is it will take over. It'll do funny things to you if you don't recognize that about it, that you really are just using one eye. But if you don't keep your eye moving, it's going to get really confusing. So trying to fix things with two eyes is hard to do. And frankly, you can't in one sense. But if you keep your eyes moving, so what you want to do is be able to see a beautiful shape and then see another beautiful shape. You can look right at them if you like. I wouldn't look at them with one eye, but look right at them. You'll see with clarity the shape on, say, the leg of a chair, and then the back of the chair, the silhouette up there. You'll be able to see both of them with great clarity. But what you want to do is see how they relate to each other as well. So you can look hard in a sense. And by the way, when I was talking to Giovanni about this, I said, I had this discussion about looking hard, and I said, part of what you're trying to do is fix things. Fix things almost like a sight-sized person would do it. I think you can match literally stuff. What we want to do is reproduce relationships. So relationships are easily seen with a fluid eye, with an eye movement. In fact, it's required. To see the thing as a whole, what do you fix on when you're trying to see the thing as a whole? Do you see what I mean? But when you're trying to see relationships, the same thing is true. You have to get two of them into your eye. So there's going to be an equal focus on the whole field at the same time. But it works fine with two eyes open. Now, the one thing I suggest about not having two eyes open is you lose that thing, I think, that Burge Harrison called dither. And it's sort of a thing that gives a lifelikeness to our drawing. We're not looking, what was that Stevenson said about Velázquez? He said he drew with his eyes. It's an interesting thing. We're not mechanics. We're not cameras. We're not cyclopses. We are two-eyed humans. And there's an interesting thing that goes on when you draw with two eyes, and that is you get something more lifelike than when you draw with one. It's a strange thing. There's something about camera drawing that people using cameras, that gives them away every time. And I suggest to you that it has to do with that interpretation. It's a one-eyed interpretation. So for whatever that's worth. All right, so lately while drawing, but all the more so. So you'll see an angle, and if you say, how does that relate to vertical? You need to get vertical in your eye. Now, which one are you going to fix on? There is a saying in the conversation out there, and I think it was coming from Sergeant Kendall, who said, look hard at the thing you're not painting. Now, I think he's saying, don't look hard at the thing you are painting, but you can take that to mean whatever you want. But looking hard is an interesting thing, And with most people, most of us have this foveal zoom-in vision, and we think if we can just pin it, somehow or other we can draw it. There is a clarity of seeing that's important, but there's a seeing the relationals too. So how do you do that? Do we just fix one thing and fix one thing and fix one thing? Well, if you use two eyes, you're rather forced to be a little, I'd say bigger. You're forced to be a little more relational. You'll find it a lot more pleasant. We read stuff from guys who are talking about eye health. Guys who, somebody wrote a book, was the doctor of Aldous Huxley. I think it was called The Art of Seeing, actually. I think it was The Art of Seeing, yeah. Where Huxley talks about what this guy did, but his basic instruction was keep your eyes moving. So that puts you in a very different place. If your eyes are moving, what is that one eye thing? It doesn't quite work that well. So these are just things that are just random things that come up. The bottom line is the two eyes drawing is what you want to do. And it does work, and it works well. It works particularly, it works well if you're a relational painter. So why don't I always have both my eyes open when drawing? Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's a reason to ever close one eye except those 2 points that he made to align yourself with your cast properly. And by the way, even after you do that, you'll realize that you can, say you're aligned with that point I talked about. You realize that when you can do that with one eye too, you can just move your head back and forth with both eyes open. And there'll be that point at which that thing just disappears because you really are a Cyclops. I'm not, but you guys are. I only say that because Evan's in the room. He's always kidding around. So, okay. Okay, I think that's it. I have no idea. I have to think about that some, but I have no idea why in the movies people tilt their eyes and close them. Now, there's a tilting of the head. Like there's a thing in Japanese conversation that tells you to stand on your head. And a turning of the head so you're not seeing, the way you've been seeing. It's kind of a refresher, but whether you look with one eye, yeah, it's probably easier to do it with one eye. I don't know. I don't much do that, so I don't know how to answer that. Let's go to the second point from Giovanni. My second question doesn't seem substantial enough. It was only about holding both cast and paper together in the same field of vision, or rapidly looking from one to the other in order to see how like the drawing is. Actually, that's a fairly interesting question. When you have a painting sitting here, you have an object sitting here, you can look at both of them. You can see both of them simultaneously. But I don't know of any way to make use of that except as a corrective. You can see that when you look at them both that way, you can see where your back straggler is if you take in the whole of both of them. And it's also true flashing back and forth. That's the Max Meldrum conversation, where he says you want to look and see if the notes you have down over here look like on this panel look like they would actually could just fuse right into place on as if you overlap the objects or vice versa. So, but I suggest again that the primary use of that stuff is just to generally see if you're generally right. Do you see what I mean? But I don't know of any way to actually draw from that except for the purpose of finding a backstraggler. You can often see your backstraggler better by just taking in either both of them. But just taking in the thing as a whole and looking at the other thing after that, or looking at them back and forth with the idea of watching the whole time. That's the best way to get your head around the backstraggler. Yeah, it's a funny thing. I'll just mention this last thing and then we'll get out of here. But it's the idea of the backstraggler. We used to just break our skulls trying to find the backstraggler. And it turns out that usually if you just take the one, it's the thing the area that strikes you when you're looking at the whole as being problematical, and then make an attempt to say what it is about that area that's problematical, while you're looking at nature, you're looking at your drawing in nature. Usually you can come down to something that'll be very useful. You can make a correction and then you can move on. But you'll find that you don't need the perfect one. You just need some area that's just not working. And so don't be too fussy and fine about it. But as you get along in our way of working and seeing the whole, you just take that first one because it's usually the one, So, Evan, is there anything I might have brought up? Can you think of anything? Okay. Thank you for being there.
Always a help.
All right. There may be other stuff. This is a short one, as I said. So come on back with you guys' conversation about those sorts of things. What have you found that might be useful? I guess I could end with one last thing, and that is the concept of doing site size. You'll see plenty of places where we talk about that. And so we don't need to do that here. So if you want to refer to that, just go to other videos. Yeah. Okay. So thank you again, Jimmy C. and Sergio E. I think that might be your first donation. I really thank you. And so for the rest of you, I hope you have a great painting week. Be sure to subscribe, share, like, and all the rest of those things that we're always begging you to do. And I think I saw that we're up to like 16.5 or so in viewership. So, and we're here. You're seeing us here at 401 videos. So, one thing I did see today, when somebody wrote to me an email and he said, and somebody just from our area actually that I didn't know, and he said, so I just found your channel. I watched the X, and then I started binge watching everything you've done. I actually recommend you do that rather. So, for one thing, so you don't have to go back and ask me a question that's already an answer to out there. But more than that, I think you're just going to get your head around this better by just letting it flow over you. Just go watch. And you should be able to get a pretty good sense of what we're doing. And then, and even along the way, make notes to yourself or whatever, things you may suggest as questions or whatever you wonder about. Remembering that whole time that what I'm really talking about is my way of working, not the way of working, and which is a Boston school-based way of methodology. And it's very unique to the Boston School. Well, I say that meaning that it's not modern realism, and it's not classical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it is different, unique. So I'm not telling you best ways to do all kinds of stuff about anything, but there's a thing that they do, which is the Impressionist model with articulate drawing, that makes them so attractive. And anyway, I went on and on. Thank you. Hope you all have a great week coming up. See you next time.